finally had the app work. Little crash this morning, but we're live now, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm just finishing up a trip in Los Angeles, and I really have a special guest today. Now, if you have questions, and if you're interested in anything relating to Bruce Lee, that whole experience of making movies, working with him, training with him, I have a very special guest, and I'll just wait another 10 seconds to get people on the broadcast, and we can get started. As always, we talk about life lessons, how to use your mind correctly, the right mindset, and either techniques or drills or things that will be important that my guest shares with you. I really want to have as many people as possible, so people are coming on board. So the guest I have here is a martial art legend. He's a world champion, an actor. He played in 3 out of 5 Bruce Lee movies, and the one and only Bob Wall.
Good to be here.
I'm really excited about it, and we had a great week together, and it's always a pleasure for me to talk to you and just pick your brain about what was successful for you, what worked for you in your life. And so I know that people watching, they know Bruce Lee, they love Bruce Lee, and who's the best to really answer questions about him? Obviously, it's you.
Well, I was fortunate to know Bruce for 11 years and be his training partner, introduced him to a lot of my friends, and he was a great man. And so it's particularly fun for me to be with you and Aldo today because, and this whole week, because it makes me feel like your mom and dad are here, you know, and I loved your mom and dad. And of course your father's inspiration to get into the martial arts was Bruce Lee, and I don't know anybody who was ever better than him. So Bruce, I think, was real inspirational to a lot of great people.
Maybe for the people watching, if you have questions that you want to ask Bob, now would be the best time to do so. I have my computer right here, so if you have questions, things you want to ask him about him, like Bob Wall, the actor, the martial artist, because I get it. I get that people love Bruce Lee and they ask you lots of questions about Bruce Lee, but you're a legend in your own right, and you've been through a lot of stuff. Your life is really a great adventure and very inspirational to me. Maybe let's talk about, because I know Bruce Lee's great, but I think you're great as well, and you're here and you're alive here, so I'd rather ask questions about you personally. So you've always told me, stand on the shoulders of giants and surround yourself with people that are better than you. Can you share a bit more about that with the audience?
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing for me, I've been blessed to train Elvis, Jack Palance, Brian Keaton, Paul Newman, Summer, Steve McQueen, Freddie Prinze, and on and on and on. And to train with Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, and a lot of your dad, yourself, your brothers and sisters. So I've had the blessing of training with a lot of phenomenal martial artists, the great Gene Lavelle, of course. And the lesson for me has always been, you go into it admiring their martial arts skills, but when you can come out of it admiring them as human beings, good people, they don't cheat on their wife, they don't beat their wife, they don't beat up 4th graders. The integrity, the character, that's what's always impressed me the most. It impressed me about your mom and dad, how much they loved each other, and yet your dad still was able to train the way he wanted to train, which is at the highest level. So Bruce Lee was one of those great people. He was fun, he was funny, he was smart. He trained hard, like all great martial artists do. He trained hard. The difference between great and mediocre is that the great are going to push themselves. And Bruce did that. But he was fun, he was funny, he was kind, he was a magician. I mean, it was just, it's exciting for me to see him on screen because I go, yep, that's him. The charisma and being the first person to marry ballet with martial arts and having had so many, he did 20 films from the age of 5 to 13. His father was an actor, And so he really understood cameras and he really understood fight scenes. He understood what he liked and he rejected a lot, of the old so-called chop-socky things.
Yeah.
But no, Bruce was just an exciting guy to be around. And he was a challenger. He would come up and say, if you were a Mexican, I like Mexicans that wear glasses. And if you came back and said, well, I don't like short Chinamen. He cracked up. But he was always challenging you. And in the early days, he was very much disliked by a lot of the traditional martial artists because he called them out. And so, it was almost his voice that has created MMA in its own way. And of course, exciting for me because when I first got to your mom and dad's house and got to go and see you train with your brothers and sisters, I went, whoa, these are not Kung Fu. They may have a base of Kung Fu, but they're MMA people. And I told your dad, I said, Bruce was alive. He'd be training with you. He'd be training with people like you, with your children, with your Sifus. And that was the truth because he was cutting edge. Bruce was always ahead of the curve, which you and your school, Feng Shui Do, are that.
I got lots of questions coming in, so are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. I want to go in order. Well, first of all, Sifu Patrick says hi. Sifu Patrick.
Well, that is one great martial artist, Sifu Patrick. I say, great high back. Wish you were here.
All right, I got one from Martin here. Are you still physically active, and what do you do?
Yeah, I've now, gone from years and years and years of 7-day-a-week training with the late, great Joe Louis, Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, and so on. And I've cut it down over the years now. I train 3 days a week. Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I train for an hour and 10 minutes. I train by myself. My belief is that you need aerobic, so I keep my aerobic health up. That's internal. I flex. I do my dynamic flex. I stretch, and I do total gym. And so I have an intense hour and 10-minute workout 3 days a week. Makes me feel great. I'm 77. I can do the splits, so I'm doing something right.
For sure. One more. What is one thing you've never shared publicly about Bruce Lee? This is from JC, Jean-Claude. Anything you've never shared publicly? It could be a lot of stuff.
Start with women loved him. I don't blame him. What have I not shared publicly? I've tried to share every great thing about Bruce Lee because I loved him, and he was a great man. He was a great person. He was a great martial artist. He was a great actor. But I think maybe one thing would be when we started Into the Dragon, Bruce wouldn't shoot for the first 2 weeks. And it took us a while to figure out, and the great Freddie Weintraub and Bruce's widow, Linda, were instrumental in getting him to calm down. And so it took us about 2 weeks. I finally realized, I said, this is like he's going to the big leagues from the minor leagues, because this was a huge budget. Into the Dragon was $850,000. His previous films were $250,000 or less. And so he was nervous. So we finally decided to shoot. The first scene in the movie was Bruce simply holding the book in the room where my character comes in and says, you got to wear the uniform to the morning ritual. And so there was no dialogue in that scene, and it just clicked. He calmed, and then he was amazing after that. But, I as an athlete, we can all appreciate being nervous before a competition. And for Bruce, he knew this was the opportunity, and I believe he believed before all of us, he knew this was going to be the greatest martial arts film of all time. And it was so much Bruce Lee, so much of every scene. Boards don't hit back, all that heavenly beauty. So many things in there are just Bruce Lee.
It's a good point to make that, yes, it's okay to be afraid, to have fear. Bruce Lee was afraid of starting this movie.
He was afraid that he wouldn't perform up to his own perfection needs. And he was putting so much pressure on himself. And you're right. It's important to understand that everyone fears. If you don't fear, you're dead. There's something wrong with you. Or you will be dead. So fear is a good thing. Just like pain. Fear and pain are good things. And we need to deal with them because we get stronger, just like doing push-ups or sit-ups or any other workout.
I got my Sifu Steph is saying, looking almost as good as me, Bob. My brother's
Well, you got some handsome brothers. That's tough competition.
Samuel is asking, what's the scene that hurt the most, Bruce?
The most challenging was my jump spinning back kick when he kicks me in the groin. It wasn't the most painful, although it was painful, because people say, "Do you wear a cup?" I said, "Well, you must have never worn one, because cups help you this way. They don't help you this way." So the very first scene, I jump. You don't practice jump kicks low. So I naturally, and I have amazing legs. I jump high, and so I'm like 4 or 5 feet above Bruce's foot. So I had to keep shooting it to get lower and lower and lower, and it was very challenging because I'd never practiced a low jump spinning back kick, or any jump kick. And so I told Bruce after a while, I said, "Bruce, I'm not going to have time to control my landing." So I was afraid of stomping him. And I love Bruce, and the last thing you want to do is hurt your training partners or your film partner. And so I said, "Bruce, roll to your right. I'm going to jump. When I land, I'm going to land to your left or my right." And so that's what we did. I have those pictures because I finally had to jump so low, because remember, he's 5'7", laying on his back. So it was very difficult for him to reach me. But after a couple of takes, I took the cup off, and then the first time he kicked me, it was like, "Oh, hello." But I think the most difficult scene was probably the real bottle scene, you know. But there were a lot of challenging scenes because Bruce and I had trained together so long, we didn't rehearse. He just told me what he wanted me to do. For example, in the bottle scene, I'm using real glass because the director, who was an idiot, Bob Klaus, didn't understand, the dangers of using real bottles. Because A, they don't break the same every time. B, I've got to fall in that stuff and I can't look down. And so it cut up the backs of my uniforms, which I think I showed you. Yeah. And the 2 I have left are just chewed in the back because of the glass. So Bruce and I had to discuss it quite a bit. And Bruce and I, like you, your dad, your brothers, sister, you always use your forward weapon, your closest weapon, initially. And we just decided filmatically, as you know, real fighting, street fighting, film fighting is different. And so we both agreed that we had to, when I broke the bottles, I wouldn't come at him with the front hand like normal because it's too fast. We'd come at him with backhand, so there's plenty of time for the camera to see it. So here's Bruce's instruction to me. This is the difference between he and most people. He was brilliant. He said, "Bob, I want you to try to stab my pec." I go, "You want me to try to stab your pec?" "Yep. Stab my right pec. Come with your right hand and stab. If you can do it, stab it." So 5 times we do it perfectly, and he's got to catch me. In order to knock the glass out, he's got to catch me between the wrist and the elbow with an inside crescent kick, right leg forward. Flies away beautifully. Next scene, I'm getting faster each time, and it's just a little mistiming. And you know it well how timing is more important than speed. And he caught me behind the elbow, and so the bottle didn't fly away, and he was standing right leg forward, throws the crescent kick, and then spinning back kick. Well, he jammed his fist into the bottle, which previously was gone. It cut his hand real bad. Of course, that bothered me a lot. It made him angry, it made me angry, and we were both angry about the situation, but it led back to we were using real glass. Thanks, Bob.
I have a question here, Bob. You also worked on a number of films with Chuck Norris, and you have been like Chuck Norris's longest partner, friend, and all that. How different was it from working with Bruce Lee, like Bruce versus Chuck?
They were both the same in that Chuck Norris film, Chuck Norris controls. It's Chuck Norris's vision and input. And it's the same with Bruce. A Bruce Lee picture is a Bruce Lee picture. And so everybody's there to assist him in making the best picture possible. But they were both the same in this sense. They were both very kind. They both laughed. They had a good time. They brought good energy. But they also demanded you be a pro. No booze, no drugs. Don't be late. Show up ready to work. Know your lines. Know your scene. And do 110%. But I love working with both of them. I did, 8 films with Chuck, 3 with Bruce, signed to do the 6th film before his untimely death. and I did 26 walkers. So I worked with both of them a lot. And I think what I appreciate about them is they were both old-fashioned gentlemen, very kind. I'm married 47 years. I'm still in love with my wife. She's very kind. Also tougher than me. I'm 0-900 against her. So I guess I like tough and kind.
My little brother Sifu Sil says hi, Uncle Bob.
Hello, Sifu Sil. You handsome dog.
Lots of people saying hi, like Ronald. So they love your energy. This is a great point. You're 77.
Yes.
Just the energy you have like when you think of a 77-year-old, like I've seen a lot of like older men, and they're senile. They're like like you're just bubbling with energy, and that really excites me and inspires me because I want to be like you when I'm like at your level. So what's your secret?
I think the secret is to appreciate, the life that God gives you, and I think really part of the secret is to focus on being happy about what you do have, and not unhappy about what you don't have, and being happy when somebody does you wrong, and you say, well, thank you. Now I know who and what you are. And so for me, it's always been, I'm adamant about making sure I tell those that I love them. I'm passionate about martial arts. Therefore, I'm passionate about people who are passionate about martial arts. And so for my secret, it's work out, stay flexible, keep your aerobics up. I do resistance so I can keep my physique to a degree. And obviously, as we get older, parts wear out. But then you learn to work around them and stay focused on, I'm happy about what I have, not unhappy about what I don't have anymore. And with age, on my desk, as you've seen, I keep a sign that says, old age and treachery will always defeat youth and skill. So you learn to use different tools.
Question here, like what do you think of MMA fighting? And you were the first heavyweight, full contact karate fighter in history. So you know a thing or two about fighting and mixing the arts. Like you've been doing this like in the 60s, way before everybody else.
The blessing was because I'm Gene LaBelle's oldest black belt, and I made black belt in judo in 1957,
57.
And with Gene in 59. And Gene always said, Gene is, in my mind, incomparable. He's one of the toughest people on earth. Never drank, never smoked, no drugs. But when I first moved to LA to train with him, he said, kid, I got 2 gears, kind and kill. The rest are BS. And he said, go train in everything. Train in everything. And so that's why I boxed. And that's why I Thai boxed. And that's why I did jiu-jitsu. And I did Shorin-ryu, Taekwondo. I was always looking to pull out the corn out of the wheat, out of the chaff. And so that continually challenges you. So to answer your question, MMA, I love MMA. There's a couple of weaknesses I think I see a lot of these top level people are using drugs, which is a shame, because they're robbing their tomorrows for today. I'm real anti-drug. Yeah. I told my children, I've never done drugs, I've never smoked. They call it dope because it's only for dopes. Only dopes do drugs of any type, in my opinion. And I think even a lot of people overuse prescription drugs to mask pain. I'm a firm believer. I'm a friend of pain. Pain is a friend of mine. You deal with it. And you learn to deal with it, and you get better at it. And you lose that fear of it. And it's almost like getting beat up the first time, or the second time, or the third time. It's with all these clowns that are supposedly 900. No. I got beat up in wrestling. I got beat up in judo. I got beat up with Gene LaBelle. I got beat up with Chuck Norris. I got beat up with Joe Louis. I got beat up with the Machados. Not quite so easy to beat me up today, but I believe top level, you need the challenges of working out with somebody superior to you. And sometimes maybe you're superior at certain things, but it's finding people who are superior in things that you're not and working with them, and then you're going to get your butt beat. That's okay.
Remember, guys, it was important for me to share with you people that I look up to, mentors of mine. This is a great opportunity. It won't repeat itself. If you have any questions, now's the best time to do so. Keep them coming. because I have the privilege to be around men like Bob, and I really appreciate it. This is really not for me, and Bob's time is very valuable. So yeah, he's here for you if you have any questions, and same thing for me. We spent a phenomenal time together, but I wanted people who follow us, like our fans, to get to ask you questions and get to feel and live a little bit what I've been through and my experience here and being with you. So if you have any other questions, now would be the great time. Another question here from JC. How do you view the importance of martial arts today in this world of virtual reality where our kids are completely immersed in technology?
It's a very good question. The reality is we need it more so because the problem I see with a lot of youngsters is they spend so much time in passive pursuits and they don't get enough physical training. And you absolutely need to use your body. It's use it or lose it. You need to train. The stimulation, the endorphins make you feel better. It was Francois Patenaude that said, a person at peace with himself is at peace with his fellow man. And the reality is that we actually need the physical stress, if you will, the physical challenge in order to become the best person we can be. So I am a firm believer in training.
My little brother asking you, like, what are your future plans?
My future plans are to keep training, keep reminding my wife how much I love her after 52 years, 5 years of dating, 4 years in marriage, and thanking God for the blessings I have, particularly my wife and my children, my friends. And it's like, you know, for me to have you and Aldo come down and spend this time with me is very exciting, stimulating. It makes me feel good, and I love being around people I love and admire. And you know, I love and admire you, your brothers, your sister, Patrick, your brother-in-law, the kids, the family, the Feng Shindo family, which I think is, if not the best system in the world, it's one of the 2 or 3. It's a great system. And part of the greatness, though, is your leadership, Seabach, where you're trying to make people understand and teaching them. And it's a character issue. As Teddy Roosevelt said, to educate a man's mind without educating his morals is to create a menace to society. Chuck Norris and I tried to do that in our schools. We were constantly based on character. We failed people for advanced belts if we felt it was a character issue, and we explained it to them. And so the fact that you're incorporating, you know, this knowledge, things I've learned, 30-some-odd questions I wish I asked my dad, those kinds of things are very, very important because they make you think.
I'm just going to reach over here and grab a magazine. This is something that me and Bob, more Bob, like his idea to bring this to life. Like we'll be bringing this over to Canada soon. This is a magazine that Bob helped me create, and it's very special to me. Front cover for my dad, and just recognizing a bit on print my dad's accomplishments, and just putting him on the cover of the magazine just for me and for him. It was very important for us to do this. My dad always wanted to be on the front cover, so better late than never.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, and the beauty to this is your mom and dad were great people, great partners. But your father, you know, Joe Patenaude, was one of the greatest martial artists of all time, and unfortunately passed early like Bruce Lee. And so it was a shame, because I knew that was one of his goals. I knew where he was going to go. He was going to be on dozens of front covers. And it's very important that this got done because it preserves his history, but it preserves the kind of human being he was, and it preserves the kind of family man he was, the integrity, the character, and it preserves the love he had for your mom, Linda. It preserves how Feng Shindo was created and how it's evolved into the multiple schools that they have now. So this was very important to me. It was important to me, and I thought great for your brothers and sister and brother-in-law to have this respect shown to your dad.
questions coming in. Are your kids involved in martial arts?
Yes, I have two daughters, and my youngest still trains in jiu-jitsu with Higan Machado and me occasionally. My eldest daughter, actually really excellent martial artist, but no killer instinct. My youngest daughter has that. They're both talented martial artists, but I think they both, even my wife, they took it as far as they wanted. They don't have the same passion that I have, but they also appreciate the ability to protect themselves. And both my daughters have educated a couple of boys, particularly in the college time. There was knockouts and chokeouts, and there was an absence of grabbing body parts after that.
I love it. Another question here. What value do you put on the importance of meditation, and what advice do you have for beginners?
I think meditation is very important. I hope everybody does it, even if it's only a short period of time. It's almost like sleeping. The time that you spend just focused on the meditation clears your mind. And I think sometimes we get caught up in stress. And we all do. And so I think that I do my breathing exercises in the morning, and it's only 5 minutes. But I ask God to allow me to release negative thoughts and let me do something kind for somebody today. And let me enjoy today and enjoy everything about it, whether it's the heat or the cold, the birds, the trees, and just kind of stop and slow down. So the meditation and the breathing exercises for me are very important, and I advise everyone to do it.
You talked about character. For me, this is very important to not just be a badass on the mat or in the ring, but really to become a winner in life. And this is what we've been talking about the whole week, about the Fighting Academy and how life is a combat. Can you share a bit more some of your principles about that? Like about life is a combat. You are in a fight from when you're born to when you pass to the next level.
There's no question about it. Life is a combat, and my reason for not masking or ever using drugs is, and maybe I take it to the extreme, using none. I've never even taken an aspirin. But I think you need to face the realities that you're going to have ups and downs. And it's almost like being a winner. Most everybody wants to be around a winner or a famous person. But, as we talked about, fame is maybe the public's perception of what you are. But it's not really who you are. Who you are is that character. And to me, I always admire people like yourself, your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, how they treat their children, how they treat their family, how they treat their friends, how they treat their students. That's character, that's integrity. And so my reality is to want to be as close to the public perception as possible. And the only way I can do that is if I'm able to deal with those down times. Like, I left home at 13. By the time I was 25, I was worth a couple of $1 million. And then several years later, I went through 10-year real financial challenges. It was very stressful for me and my family. But because I'd been there up, I was able to stay focused on it and not lose my integrity and stay in there and deal with the pain of it. But you make mistakes, but it's just like fear. Fear and mistakes teach you what you need to do differently or better the next time. And if you don't face it, how do you deal with it?
Question from Michael Smith. Bob, how important is mastering the basics, fundamentals? Should they be practiced every single day? Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's very important to choose your instructors in your school wisely, because they're like anything, any profession. In my opinion, 80% of those people in any profession are less than desirable and less than professional in a lot of ways. So you get with a great school, a great system, a great instructor, and maybe you need to train 2 or 3 or 4 different systems to pick out that person. Because I believe all systems are great. It's the person behind the system that may be bad or good. So yes, once you get to that great system, it's like a foundation of a house. You need to build that strong foundation, and that begins with the basics. So There's no great fighters who don't have balance. There's no great fighters who don't have great basics. And then once you've got these great basics, you build upon them. And in my mind, it's way better to practice a few techniques a lot than a lot of techniques once or twice, because you're never really going to master them. So you stay focused on practicing, but you also have to constantly challenge yourself. Now that you've got a comfort zone with those basic techniques, now you want to challenge yourself, put yourself out there like professional fighters. They have, the hardest part for them is not the fight, it's the training. Because in the training, they have to train with people that they're equally and possibly superior to them, and they have to try different techniques in situations where they get hit. So that's how you learn. You need to be with people who are superior to you, even at your level. You come to LA and you train with people in your mind that maybe not superior to you in the totality, but in boxing they're better than you are, or in grappling they're better than you, or in kickboxing maybe they're better than you. Whatever it is, the fact is, maybe you're just learning exercises, like you've done with Chris Warren, the great boxing exercises that he taught, a lot of great world champions. And so I always love that. I respect that about you, that you're out there, as Chuck Norris and I did, as Bruce Lee and I did. We challenged ourselves. We were out there training with people who were superior to us in a certain aspect. And then you become egoless. You let your ego, you're not in the school to win. You're in there to learn.
Yes. Question about how did you get involved in movies, and did you ever want to be an actor, or did it happen by accident?
Yeah, I had no desire to be an actor. It all happened because Chuck Norris asked me to do film parts, and he always felt that I could help him look better. And obviously, like any great training partner, when you train with your brothers and sister, your brother-in-law Patrick, you get a sense of confidence. You know what they can and cannot do, and mostly it's what they can do, and so you can challenge them and yourself. So, but I always took my attitude was, when Chuck asked me to do films, was how can I make him look better? What's my job? I'm not the star. My job is to make him or her look better, and I carried that over to Bruce Lee and all the other films I've done. But I remember walking into Freddie Weintraub's office when Bruce asked me to do Into the Dragon. And he said, "Are you an actor?" I said, "Nope." "You want to be an actor?" "Nope." "Are you taking acting?" "Nope." Now, I lied because I had taken acting lessons with Chuck Norris. But I only did that in his first lesson, in his first series of first lessons, to make him feel comfortable with the challenge. And I found out, whoa, this is a tough profession. Acting, everybody thinks it looks easy, like racing or anything else. No, very challenging. But I did that for the first half a dozen or so lessons, but it was never my goal. So when Freddie said, "Are you an actor?" I said, "No." "You want to be an actor?" "No." "Are you taking acting?" "No." "Thank you, goodbye, you're not right for the part." I didn't care. But my job was to make people look good. Just like when Chuck Norris and I became partners in the school. I may have, at that time, been a better grappler, but he was far superior as a karate person. We were selling karate. So my ego said, "Hey, you be the front man. You be the main instructor. You're the boss on the mat." I was a better businessman. He was egoless about that. So learning to subjugate your ego and not being insecure or intimidated by the fact that somebody's better at something than you. And so in a partnership, I've been blessed my whole life. I've never had a bad partner. Chuck Norris, the greatest. Bruce Lee, of course, fabulous. My wife, Lillian, fabulous. So picking your partners, it's like picking your mate. You choose wisely and hopefully get lucky. But that's very important.
If this is not too personal, what was one of your biggest life obstacles, and how did you go about dealing with it, and what did you learn from it, from David?
Well, when I was a child, my father was a big Irishman, 6'1", 190 pounds, and he was an alcoholic. And it was a disease, which I didn't know as a little kid. But he stuck hay hooks in my arm, and we were farmers, and he stabbed me with a screwdriver and hit me in the face with a hammer, and left me with a big gaping hole in my face. And so it became normal. I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
Except that my mom was super kind. I had the best mother and the worst father. So the challenge was to get to a point, finally when I was 13, I'd had enough. And I actually loaded our only gun at 22, a single shot, and I was going to kill my father. And thank God, you know, God spoke to me and said, don't do this, because I had no idea about Bubba, about prisons, about bologna sandwiches, about rape. I had no idea about the pitfalls of going to prison. But I made the decision not to shoot him, which I thank God for it. And then I made the proper decision, which anybody should do. If you're in a bad situation, leave, get out of there, walk out if you have to. And me, I had an old balloon tire bike. I got on it and rode 162 miles away to another uncle who took me in, and I wound up going to high school there. So that was the first real challenge. But I had been inspired by my mother when I was 7. We lived on a farm. She would always make chocolate cake with icing. Well, I've never liked sweet things. And we got to laugh. The only sweet thing I really like is chocolate raisins. But I'm not into pies, cakes, candy, cookies, whatever. But at 7, my idea of heaven was a chocolate cake with no icing and a glass of cold milk. And so I used to give my mom a bad time about it. She said, look, Bobby, everybody else in the family likes icing. If you don't like it, bake your own cake. And I said, I'm a kid. I'm 7 years old. I can't bake a cake. Well, you're a 7-year-old kid that reads, aren't you? Yeah. Here's the recipe. Here's the flour. Here's the sugar. Here's the milk. Here's the eggs. Bake your own cake. And so I did, and it was mediocre. Not like hers, but it was edible. And the second was a little better, and she shared with me how to improve it. And the third one was really good. After that, I went, wow, I can bake a cake. So it gave me a sense of confidence. And that sense of confidence led me, 6 years later, to the confidence that I could get on that blue tire bike and ride, for the most part, a few miles of it in the dark. There's only a little flashlight wired to my bike. So each lesson that makes you feel good about yourself or teaches you that there is a recipe for something better and keep your optimism, don't get negative. Those are the lessons that really took me through life and through all my challenges.
Have you ever considered shooting your own movie?
No, we did a documentary called The Life and Legend of Bob Wall, but it was another person, Don Warner's idea. Now at this stage of my life, I'm beginning to think about, a more updated documentary, but never really a full-blown film, although I've been asked a few times that Warner Brothers offered me a 3-picture deal, starring role back after Enter the Dragon. My wife and I discussed it and decided it wasn't the career for me, because my belief is that all heterosexual males prior to marriage, they want to seduce every woman they can. And that really doesn't go over big with wives. And so I had to make a decision to go from my single days to being married, and that means then your word is that you're going to be with that woman only. And that was a big challenge for me. I didn't know how I was going to overcome it, but I did it. And now I'm proud of it. And now I still have a life after 47 years.
I really enjoy spending time with you and you taking the time to answer a question. If there's any other questions, now would be the right time. I don't want to impose or take too much of your time. I know you're a busy man. If you have any other questions, now would be the time to do so, guys. So while those come in, just one word is always inspirational for me to see your level of energy and enthusiasm for learning. Like it never seemed, you've never been closed-minded. If ever I taught you about a concept or like different training or a drill or a technique, you're always authentic, like always honestly interested in just learning more.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of life, is to stay open. And part of youth is to keep yourself. What is it? Youthful people are always looking forward. They're always looking for a challenge. You become better at their chosen profession or hobby. And so it's clear, if you want to be youthful, be forward-thinking, accept challenges, and keep your mind open. And I'm like any person as I've gotten older. I resisted computers for a long time. Now I'm a blue belt, maybe on my way to green belt in computer. I can send and receive emails, I can Google and so forth. So I've been resistant to many things, but then I talk, or you'll become irrelevant. So accepting the challenges, and I listen to like your ideas, and I go, yeah, that's a great idea. You know, the podcast, training students maybe once a month from one location, and making it interactive where you get feedback, so you can get to so many more people, and you can save some of that hour and a half drive energy that's negative into pure positive, and that benefit goes out to those students. So I think it's brilliant. So I constantly like to hear people's ideas and think it through and say, yeah, that's good, and keep my mind open to the possibilities.
Again, I really sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you. Every time I come and meet you, I never want to leave, really, because like you treat us so well, and
we don't want you to leave either, so we're leaving.
And I really feel like you are part of my family, and you treat me like family, and I really appreciate that. I love you to death, and I wish you many more years of success and a long, long life full of adventure, love, and everything else.
Back at you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, bud. Thank you, guys. And as always, every Friday we broadcast. We have and techniques, drills, to like different teachings, but spending time with people who are better than you, who are more advanced in life, not just in martial arts, but in other areas. Super important. My dad believed in that. Bob believes in that. It's a universal concept, principle that you have to apply to your own life. I'm just getting ready to get back to training, back to teaching in Castleman and in Montreal. So I look forward to seeing all of you on the mat in the dojo. So until next time, I'm Sibak Martin Patenaude. Hope you enjoyed this special moment, this special interview, and I'll see you next week, next Friday, for our next workout together. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Now, the bad news is the omelet's almost ready.